Hello and welcome to another live episode of Buyer's Fireside Chat presented to you by Global Sources. My name is Megla and I'll be hosting this session today. And I have with me three gentlemen from all parts of the world, basically. We have John, who's joining us from Mexico. We have Nestor from China, and we have AJ joining us from the US. Welcome, everybody, to the live show. So today's topic is shipping, logistics, and also Chinese New Year. As everybody is aware, there are just so many challenges happening nowadays with shipping products from China, India to the US, and even Europe. In fact, also with Chinese New Year coming up, there's just so many challenges in China. And recently we heard that there's a new a breakout of the virus in China in one of the provinces, and they've gone into lockdown. So a lot is happening in China and also in the sourcing industry. So let's get some introductions going over here before we get into the topic. So AJ, do you
Yeah.
want to maybe just introduce yourself and tell people what exactly is your expertise?
Well, Mego, thank you for putting me on the forum. This is my first time at Global Sources. Just want to introduce myself briefly. I'm based here in Los Angeles, California. I've been a logistician, freight forwarder, a business developer for the last decade and a half. Been there, done that. Best of all, I've also been on the other side of sourcing, importing, ran my own company selling to the big boxes back in the day. So I totally understand the challenges, not just from the logistics side as a vendor, but also as a shipper, as an importer as well, working with the big boxes, and now more importantly, with ecom, with Amazon, with Walmart, and the rest of the ecom vendors or sellers that we have now. So again, thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining us, AJ. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, good morning to you, Mikla. Hello, guys. Jay Nestor, it's a pleasure to be part of this event one more time. Thank you so much for the invite. For all you know that don't know me, my name is John Forty. I'm the director of T40 Group. We are a company based in China. We have 12 years experience in trade. We offer a range of services such as sourcing, quality control, product development, factory auditing, logistics, and many more. We're located in the city of Shenzhen, a major trade hub in China. So we can provide our customers with the latest innovative and trending products and fast delivery. Most of our customers are from North America, South America, and Europe. The large majority being nowadays, obviously, Amazon sellers. Um, Focus on the topic today regarding logistics. We have a lot of experience dealing with shipment from China to all over the world. So it's a total pleasure for us to be sharing our knowledge with you guys today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, John. Okay, Nestor, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Megla, and to the Global Sources group for inviting us. I'm from Peru originally, and I'm also American, but I've been living here in Shenzhen for the past 5 years. I manage our family company sourcing office, which is based in Hong Kong, but we also operate our own tablet factory. So we have plenty of experience shipping both to the US, to Latin America, and to Peru especially. And we develop our own brand for tablets, all-in-ones, laptops, and all different types of IT products. So it's a pleasure to join you here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so guys, all of you watching, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them in the comments section, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can just type in your comments and we'll be able to pose them to our speakers here. So Ronald Frank is asking, what's that? Well, Ronald, if you're just joining us, this is a Buyer's Fireside Chat, and we're going to be talking about shipping and Chinese New Year today. Okay, so let's kick off our session here. So the first question that I want to ask all three of you is, what are you seeing out there in terms of the shipping related issues, specifically sending products from China or India, to the US? So AJ, do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll start with that. I'll give you my perspective from the U.S. side, since the two gentlemen here are back in China, and they could also much better give a detailed overview of what's happening over there in that side of the pond. So with us over here, it's really what I'd call a perfect storm. It's never really happened before, never seen before. Uh, you've got, the four C's is what we call it here, much like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. You've got COVID, you've got chassis shortage, you've got container shortage, and we've got crew shortages. So those things are really what's impeding and what's bottlenecking here, not just on the West Coast, but also on the East Coast. As I was telling you guys last night from another forum, um, we have up to date 32 ships right now bobbing in Los Angeles Harbor, just waiting for a chance to berth and unload. And it's not because our ports are inefficient, but it's because of a mandatory imposition of that 20% rule, and the union insisting that they keep staff to a bare minimum right now. So even if during peak season we would have these delays in shipping, as you gentlemen would know, right now 20% capacity, they can't move enough freight as fast off these boats.
Wow. Yeah, that does seem very intense. So, John, do you want to give your perspective as well?
Yes, yeah, sure. I want to back up what AJ was saying. Surely COVID-19 has affected shipping operations from China to everywhere, really. Not only sea cargo, it's affected air cargo, train, transportation, all have suffered. The first issue that we're having is a constant increment on shipping fares. And this is due to container shortage, as AJ was saying. There is so much demand at the moment in China, and is higher than the space available. I'll give you a clear example with illustrate an example of how these shipping rates has incremented. This time last year, we shipped a container, 45 high Q container from China to Colombia. At this time this year, we paid, I think it was almost around $5,000 in sea freight. July last year, we paid 8,000 for the same container. December, we managed to pay 10,000. And at the moment, we're about to just ship the same container, 45 IQ, and the cost is 12,000. So we can clearly see an increment of 60% at least. So this is one of the major issues that is affecting, obviously, operations from China. Another big issue, as AJ was saying, was the long delays across shipping ports. We had our container arrive in Miami, and the ETA was supposed to be on a specific day, and it took 15 days longer than expected. And then just to load that container from the shipping port to be released took another 10 days. So we're talking about for normal timing of transit time of 25 to 35 days. We're talking about 45 to at least 60 days expect delays. So clearly COVID-19 has affected all operations all around.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. So it's not only that there are bottlenecks in the US, or that are causing these issues. It's basically everywhere. I mean,
It
like
is,
ships
it is.
going from China to anywhere in the world, right?
It's shortage everywhere, and
Yeah.
there's not enough space. I mean, there's not a space available, to cover the whole demand. So yeah, we at times we've been having to basically beg for the space, or even it's come to the point that sometimes we have to pay up front for shipping space. We never seen this before.
Right. So Nestor, do you want to chip in as well and tell us what
Yeah,
you are seeing?
I was listening to John talk about the rates going from 8,000 to 10,000, out 12,000, and I laughed to myself a little bit because I feel lucky that we've only gotten a quote from Hong Kong to Peru up to 8,500, compared to what it was, 3,000 this time of year. Usually, other years maybe it's gone up to 4,000 maximum, but I think one of the points that people need to think about is how to manage the risk, how to allocate to different forwarders. Because in our case, we work with two forwarders, mainly one here in Shenzhen and the other one in Hong Kong. But even our very steady forwarders haven't been able to get enough space for us. And so we've reached out to new forwarders, opened up new shipping lines, not just use one high shipping line, for example, Costco and others. So managing risk is a really big issue now. Having different forwarders, splitting up your containers based on which one is most important. So that's mainly what I've been thinking about in terms of shipping over the last few weeks.
Right. So someone is asking from Hong Kong to where for $8,500.
Lima, Peru. That's a transit time of 33 or to 37 days.
Could you send me
Right.
those details after the webinar, please?
What's that?
He's
What was
asking
it?
for those details because he's getting it for 12,000. So he
Well,
wants your context.
as I said, we manage many containers every week, from Hong Kong to Callao. So, um, but even so, the big thing is even if they offer you a good price, that doesn't mean they're going to be able to load the container on the vessel. And that's my point of conversation with everyone now with the forwarders, because I don't mind paying 10,000, 10,500, as long as they assure me that the container will be loaded on the vessel. And so that's what we've been holding the forwarders really accountable for, more than the price.
True.
Right. So AJ, let me come to you. I mean, we're talking about prices over here. And what sort of price increases are you seeing from China to the US?
Again, I would say near double. Same time this year, close to about 2 grand. Right now, we're looking at about 5 grand, 5 grand and a half. And that's because of the arbitrary GRIs that a lot of the carriers have been putting on this is the importers really. We've heard things about. Obviously, the gentlemen are familiar with GRI, but right now they're saying they have this premium service fee, as we discussed. Guaranteed sailing fees. These range anywhere from 600 to about 2,500, depending on destination with the carriers. Another thing to note is that there's been even though there's been a decrease of blank sailings wherein carriers should actually pull vessels off the line. This is way towards the apex of COVID and heading towards end of Q4. Um, they've really are still coping with all of that buildup, because they pulled a lot of vessels offline at the height of COVID, and during COVID season they were sending crews away, and it was quite a slow process of bringing the crews back again and putting their vessels back online for the trade lanes.
Right. So that's what really has caused this container shortage, right? Because there was not much demand during COVID, and then suddenly, toward the end of the year, there was this huge demand from China and other countries as well, and so that's really caused the container shortage, right?
Correct. I mean, the demand is so high that even on our export side in the U.S., wherein we export quite a lot of almonds, for example, to India, they're not taking our bookings. They would rather have an empty go back to China, because they would make more money on the on the return back to the U.S. rather than the $600-$700 that we're paying for almonds to India for high cubes, and even to China, because they're the world's leading consumer of almonds, both India and China.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about sort of the repercussions for importers, and what kind of impact should people be expecting with all of what's going on. So AJ, let me ask you first. I mean, of course, you mentioned the price. There's price increases, and then there's also delayed shipments, right? So what kind of delays are we talking about over here? And are the delays mostly at the ports, or are they in China? Where are the delays happening mostly?
Unfortunately, it's the whole seamless supply chain from the time that we could spot a container into the supplier's warehouse, all the way to being able to deliver into the supplier's doorstep. And most relevant is, for example, Amazon. There's just not enough hours of the day and equipment to get into the Amazon FBA centers. And to top off on that one, on the one side also is the problem that Amazon is internally facing in receipt of the seller's goods. I mean, I have firsthand experience because I have friends, brand managers and trainers, or brand ambassadors as they call it, in several of the Amazon facilities here. ONT8, for example, LGB7. The problem is that they've been hit with COVID as well. So, according to one of my close friends, who's a trainer over there, before they go into work, they have to look at their smartphone to see if there's somebody hit with COVID. And every day, almost every day, somebody gets hit with COVID over there. And so they're running. That's not, it's not a known fact, but they're running very slim inside the warehouses. May these be day shifts or graveyard shifts. Another thing is, especially during the holidays, a lot of people quit because Amazon was forcing them to do 60-hour workdays.
Wow.
And they don't have an option to opt out. They have to work.
Oh, wow.
I thought at first that this was something that's unlawful, but apparently when I checked, for example, just for the California situation, as long as the employer is willing to pay the time and a half or the double time, by law you are required as an employee to work. And Amazon, as an Amazon employee doing pick and pack, doing quality inspections, backbreaking. 10-hour work days backbreaking. How much more for 12-hour work days? And the algorithm does not permit for a lot of exemptions. It's basically show up or you get written up, or and again, Americans can be very resistant, especially when it comes to work and holidays, and they would rather quit. They would rather stop working and not, and seek work somewhere else.
Right, makes sense. So, John, let's talk about the repercussions from your perspective, and you deal with a lot of different clients as well. So, you mentioned their price increases, but how is that really affecting importers and their business? Are people canceling orders, for example, or like what's going on in terms of the impact?
Yeah, well, customers, some of the customers don't really understand what's happening. They're not used to dealing with this sort of, shipping. They just want the products in their hands as soon as possible. And obviously, COVID has impacted the whole system, the whole process. So, what we recommend in our customers, or what we're telling our customers to do, is to, first of all, to be very, very extremely patient, because this situation is totally out of our hands. It's something new, completely new to us. So we recommend in those customers who usually send cargo by air to switch to sea shipment, which offers an alternative. Is cheaper, okay? Even though the transit time is longer, it offers them a better margin for profit, especially for those Amazon sellers who are restricted to 200 units SKUs, shipping restrictions. We encourage them to send one-time large cargo in bulk packing. They can even send it to our warehouse, or we can send it to their home even. Repack, resupply their stock directly to FBA centers, and that way they can avoid the constant increment of sending a small packages or small units of 200 units at a time. So if they make an order for 2,000, 3,000 units, send the whole lot one time, and then they will save on cost. Send it by sea, and rather than sending small packages or small units, 200 at a time by air, which the cost obviously is phenomenal at this time. So this is how we're dealing with. I'm recommending, I'm advising all our customers to deal. So far, it's proven that it's working. Some are benefits from that way of dealing with the current situation.
Right. And then air freight rates were also pretty high, right? Because there are hardly any passenger airplanes. And also, what's the situation with air freight rates now? Is that sort of stabilized or not yet?
No, it's not stabilized. I mean, gradually it's coming to the same as prior years, but it's still. I mean, for a volume product, it will not be a profit. I mean, especially for those Amazon sellers that want to squeeze. Obviously, always try to squeeze that small margin of profit is unbearable. They can't just make a profit. So that's the way forward, is to send by sea. Air shipment at the moment is too high.
Okay.
At least, may I interject? It's not like $20 per kilo back in the height of everybody trying to bring in face masks from
Yeah,
China.
right. But we're talking about, I mean, you have to consider that if you have 200 items, okay, and you are under 21 kg, it's not going to be a cheap cargo. It's going to cost you at least $15 a kilo. If you send large volume, obviously you reduce in freight costs, but it all depends in your volume, depends on your obviously your weight, and depends very much on your product. So what we do, we make a formula to make sure that we offer our customers our solution so they can make a profit. Because the least we can do is obviously try to offer them an advantage over our services. If we send them a cargo where they're not going to make a profit out of that, they're not going to come back to us. So we're trying to make it cost effective to them.
Right. You have to be more creative and come up with different
Absolutely.
solutions. So, Nestor, what sort of impact are you seeing on your brands, with shipping prices increasing, increased lead time? What sort of impact are you having on your own brands?
So we've been lucky this year because our particular products, tablets, all-in-ones, laptops, of course, are in the highest of demand around the world. And in the case of our brands, yes, we've had to pay a higher shipping fee. Before this year, it was almost unthinkable to send a tablet, a 7-inch entry-level tablet, maybe FOB cost $30, $35 by air. It would just be too expensive. And we were paying maybe between 10 and 15 USD per kg to send it from Hong Kong to Lima. And even now, we still have some very heavy laptops, 15-inch laptops that we're finishing producing before Chinese New Year. And it's incredible, but even, each laptop is around 3 kg with accessories. They still want to ship them, pay those 30, 35 USD per piece to ship them by air. So it really depends on the product, since the prices of these products has gone up significantly, there's that space in that margin for those products to do the air shipment. However, of course, you don't want to send everything by air. And the other thing that has been kind of surprising is consolidation. Before, when a container only cost $2,000, you wouldn't really think about, whether the container had $100,000 or $200,000 inside of it, because it was only 1 or 2% on the impact of it. But now, you really have to try to pack as many possible devices into those, 68 CBMs or whatever it is that fits into the 40 high Q. So those are all the considerations we're taking into account now with the new situation.
Right. Okay, I also want to ask the audience to share their experience. So, guys watching, if you have, experienced any delays or increase in shipping costs or any other challenges, feel free to type them in the comments, share them with us, and also ask any questions if you have, from our panel over here. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Chinese New Year, which is, coming up pretty soon. So, Nestor, let me ask you first because you're right there in China right now. So, what is the situation with Chinese New Year? I mean, we know that every year factories, close for maybe a
Right.
month, sometimes even more. There's a huge exodus of workers, factory workers, going back to their hometowns to be with their families for Chinese New Year. So, how are things different this time? I mean, I'm hearing kind of mixed messages from China. Some people are saying that, oh, the government is canceling or encouraging people not to travel, whereas other people are saying that factories are already closing and workers have started going back. So what are you seeing on the
Yeah.
ground over there?
Yeah, exactly what you're mentioning, Megla. Mixed signals. Some of the assembly factories are stopping earlier, not because they want to, but because the workers, based on the news that their hometowns in the north are closing, and based on the fear that their hometowns may close, they're going back early, 1 or 2 weeks before they're not allowed to go back.
Oh,
So that's happening. And then I also received a message from another key supplier that they're trying to convince their workers to stay in Shenzhen and only have 3 days off because they just have so much work right now. They produce these laptops I was talking about. So they have so much demand right now and so much work that they need to catch up the production schedule, even if they have to pay overtime during those holidays. So um, it's really mixed depending on the situation of every factory. And of course, if they are high value items, they can work overtime and you would prefer to have the people there. But in other cases, for example, I have had to accept some delays with some suppliers because I understand that they don't have enough workers. And being here is an advantage definitely because you can go to the factory, you can see the problem. Whereas I can't imagine what it would be like for some purchase managers to be sitting, in Europe or in the Americas and just to be, ripping their hairs out, frustrated why they can't get their product shipped. So yeah, you're seeing a little bit of that. And what I would recommend to anyone who has a similar situation is just to check with their suppliers as soon as possible and also to cross reference with other suppliers if they can, because it is an evolving situation week to week.
Right. And do you see that it is differing from province to province? So, for example, maybe Shenzhen, factories are encouraging workers to stay back, whereas in maybe more, other provinces like Fuji and Zhejiang, maybe the workers are going back because they're, I don't know, closer to their hometowns, or like, are you seeing any differences in the various provinces, or not
That's a
yet?
good question, and I actually not sure about that because our QC manager, for example, yesterday was near Chengdu, and he's Peruvian. He was allowed to go in. He just came back. So Chengdu doesn't have any lockdown restrictions yet. It's still a low risk area. So is Shenzhen. So what China is doing is classifying every region as high risk, middle risk, and low risk. And the only high risk areas right now are in the north in Heilongjiang, the borders near Russia, North Korea. They're hesitant to call Beijing a high risk yet because of the impact I think economically that would have. Shanghai has two reported cases right now, known cases. So they're not putting it as middle risk even yet. But there's this latent risk. And a lot of people, a lot of my friends even are telling me, oh, just stay in Shenzhen for Chinese New Year. If you go out, you're risking having to be quarantined when you come back to Shenzhen.
Right. So even factory workers, like if they go to their hometowns, would they have to quarantine when they come back to Shenzhen? Is that the rule in
Yeah,
place, even if they
yeah.
travel domestically?
If they, yes. So as I mentioned, what's happening is if you travel from into a high risk area, when you move out of that high risk area back into a middle risk or low risk area, you will be quarantined for at least 14 days.
Okay.
Hmm.
So that's going to pose some challenges for workers, right? If they go
Yeah,
back to their hometowns, in case there are high risk areas and they come back to
yeah.
Shenzhen, they have to quarantine for, yeah, that's going to
Right.
be
And
quite
for the
complicated.
factories, because remember, most of the workers live on the factory grounds. So what does that mean for the employees who didn't go back for Chinese New Year? And how is that going to be handled? Are they going to have to put separate quarters in the living rooms, So that's the challenge that the government is facing. And another thing I'd like to mention is that we received a notice from the Shenzhen government now that because of the Hong Kong drivers bringing in some cases into the city, there's only some designated areas where they can go to pick up cargo now. So they can't, as of the 20th, as of yesterday, they can't come directly to our factory to pick up the cargo. They have to go to certain designated areas where they have their own bathrooms and their own facilities. So where they make sure they don't come into direct contact with anyone living on the mainland. So that's also going to create some delays.
Wow. So Kelly is saying, so interesting to get news on the ground. Thanks, next
Yeah,
Nestor.
you're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, for joining us. Okay, so John, same question to you. You work with a lot of factories in China as well. What are you seeing in terms of Chinese New Year over there?
Yes, we do, but I believe everyone is in the dark at the moment. I don't think there is an official announcement just yet, or not that I'm aware of. Some factories would say that they break off the first week of February. Some are saying that they will break off second week of February. So we don't know as yet. All we know is that our shipping agent has given us a deadline, and that's for the 7th of February. After that day, we cannot ship cargo anymore. So all we're doing is rushing these factories to produce our goods as fast as they can. But I think next week will be crucial. I think next week we will know when definitely is when we get the clear picture of when these companies are going for holidays. And hopefully they will notify customers in time, and obviously we will know for sure.
Right. So, John, just talking about Chinese New Year holidays in general during previous years, Do you want to maybe just give people an idea of what really happens during Chinese New Year, and what is sort of the impact of these factories closing for a month or so, and workers going back, and then what happens before Chinese New Year? What sort of quality issues can buyers
Yeah,
expect? With all of the factories rushing to finish their orders, and then also when they come back, there plenty of issues as well. So maybe you can, for people who are not very aware of what goes on, do you want to tell us what generally happens around
for
this
sure.
time?
So, well, just before the Chinese New Year, everything gets done in a rush, as you mentioned. Everyone panics. Customer wants to get their orders in, and suppliers want to complete their orders before the holidays. It's quite normal. We always encounter difficulties throughout this period, either for quality issues during production, as everything gets speed up to finish as quickly as possible. Quality control goes out the window. In some cases, factories will run out of materials, raw materials. They will bring, because they have to produce very quickly. They will bring temporarily non-experienced workers into production. So the margin for common mistakes is a lot greater than during normal periods. Just to name some of them, this year due to COVID-19, all the situations are well magnified, so we have to be more vigilant during this period and make sure we have eyes everywhere in the factories, in the logistics, and make sure we can drive all those orders out. But yeah, this time is usually a panic time for everyone. Yeah, so I mean, it's quite normal during this time.
Yeah. And so, what do you think importers can do to manage the situation a bit better? I mean, especially this time when everything is sort of magnified by what's going on because of the virus. What advice do you have for buyers and importers to manage their orders?
Well, what you can do, what we advise our customers is to place orders well in advance. I mean, you have to set a time limit. Usually we have a cushion of 2, 3 weeks. So if you have an order, you place an order, and the lead time is 20 days. That means that you should be placing that order of giving a down payment at least mid of December. So that way you got enough lead time in case you have some errors or they have some problems during production. If you produce so close to the Chinese New Year, everything is bound to happen. I mean, everything would happen. I mean, so make sure you get an order placed within the time limit, 2 or 3 weeks prior to the Chinese New Year, so you can minimize the errors.
Yeah. So hopefully, most buyers have already done that. If not, it's probably too late to place any orders before factories start closing for Chinese New Year, unless they don't close at all this year,
Yeah, we
which
don't
we
know
will.
yet.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. That'd be quite interesting, actually. So, Nestor, what advice do you have for buyers and importers to manage the entire situation this time?
Yeah, I think the key point right now is managing risk, having your eggs in different baskets, talking to different suppliers, and even if you haven't worked with them before, talk with them now to build a relationship going forward. Because it's not just about Chinese New Year; it's about what's going to happen after Chinese New Year as well. So you need to really open different options at this moment in terms of how many suppliers you have for each product, how many forwarders you work with. As I mentioned, we've had to open up, two, three, four different forwarders, whatever the case may be, to different parts. So, um, yeah, just being in touch with a lot more people now is important, because somebody may have a solution that you had no idea about, and it works. John was mentioning how to shift from air shipping for Amazon to something a little bit more scaled out over a few weeks, shipping a few units over time. Those kind of solutions are what's going to get the job done right now.
Okay. What about quality issues? I mean, during this time, it's very common to, see quality issues because suppliers are really rushing orders. And even after the factories open up,
Right.
from Chinese New
Yeah.
Year, there's always like workers moving from one factory to another. But do you have any advice on managing quality? for buyers?
Well, I think unfortunately they're not gonna like my answer, but it's patience because it is what it is, right? And if
Yeah.
you can accept a little bit lower standard because you're selling to a lower end market, then you can accept it. But if you cannot, then you cannot. And that's where really, the rubber meets the road, right? And so you just need to continue to work with your trusted QC partner, whoever that may be here, um, and let them tell you what it is. I always tell my suppliers, for example, I don't push them too hard on price, right? Because I know that everyone says they want the best lead time, the best price, and the best quality. But there's the iron triangle, right? You can only get two
Yeah.
of the three, really, really. So I choose not to pressure too much on price, but I pressure a little bit more on the time and the quality now. Um, the issue is, are you working with a supplier who understands that? Because if most of his customers, do you understand most of his customers, what do they pressure him for? Because if he has a lot of customers who are doing lower end products, then you're going to get lower end quality, and you're not going to be able to pressure him especially at Chinese New Year, to improve his quality standards. Whereas if you're working with other suppliers who are selling to higher end markets, you can be a little bit more insistent on the quality at this time. So those are the key considerations now and always.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and of course, it's really important to work with a QC, company on the ground at this time. And a lot of Amazon e-commerce sellers, sometimes they miss doing that. They don't really have QC partners, and they work directly with the factory. Also, relationships are really important at this time, right, Nestor? I mean, if you do have a
Yeah.
good relationship with your supplier,
Oh,
then this is
definitely.
the time when that pays off.
Yeah, definitely. Just as a little a comment there, we usually get gifts, from our suppliers, but this year we're kind of doing the opposite, because we want to, give them the tea baskets and the fruit baskets to make sure they support us.
Yeah,
So it works both ways. Relationship is
exactly.
super important, of course.
Yeah. So that's great advice for anybody listening. If you're sourcing from China, you have a supplier, make sure you send them some gifts and, at least wish them
The,
and
the
their
red
families a
packet on
Chinese New Year.
WeChat, yeah.
Yeah, the red packet on WeChat, that's pretty, it's something easy to send. You don't have to actually ship something over there. Okay, great advice. So, Alan, I also want to talk to you a little bit about India because, your company definitely deals, with India as well, and you're shipping a lot of stuff from India to the US. So, what sort of situation are you seeing in India in terms of the impact of COVID on ports and on shipping? Of course, I think the container shortage is impacting shipments from India as well, right?
Correct, correct. It's really a mirror of what China is experiencing into the West Coast, much like how India, again, both ways, is experiencing, log jams, congestions, and the underlying problem with India is the crumbling infrastructure that they've had to deal with in ban aid, through customs clearance, port facilities, transportation, and it's beginning to overburden further the infrastructure in India, and so it's really a nationwide systemic revelation of how antiquated their system is, and they really have to keep up because the markets in India are both opening, and thanks to companies like yourself, you're helping Indian domestic makers to start doing exports.
Right. So, what advice do you have for somebody who's importing products from India? What sort of risks do they need to be aware of, and how do they prepare?
My The best term for that is what Nestor had mentioned, which is risk mitigation. And if as a seller, if you really want to risk mitigate, go to you guys. You've vetted a lot of your sources, your suppliers. It's boots on the ground, is what we call it back in the day in the military, where it's your people on the ground who have the greatest feel, who's already established relationships, social relationships, infrastructure relationships. For the savings that a seller might have by going directly to an Indian exporter, go through you guys. go through you guys.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, so Shakir is saying very nice session. This is a very quiet audience. I'm not seeing any comments or questions from you guys. There's so many people watching. You need to be more participative and ask your questions to this amazing panel. They've got so much experience in sourcing, shipping, freight. You know, you don't really get this opportunity very often to be able to interact directly with such experienced people. So, guys, come on, ask your questions now. Okay, so I also want to ask you guys, of course, there's the ongoing shipping challenges and Chinese New Year, but overall, the impact of COVID on sourcing and how, yeah, and manufacturing in China and India has been significant, right? I mean, 2020 was really a transformational year. So, John, I want to ask you first, what sort of overall impact have you seen that COVID has had on production in China? For example, in 2020, we saw a lot of suppliers switching to PPE, right? So, those types of things. What are you
we
seeing?
actually
Like big,
we actually started offering those products because that's where the I mean that's those products were in demand, so we have to go with the flow. If those products are in demand, and
yeah,
obviously if one of our customers was producing bags, he was not going to make a profit due to the quarantine. So he
yeah,
switched to PPE material. Obviously, those were the trending products that were, let's say, they were on demand at that time. So yeah, we did ship a lot of those. But overall, I mean, for the first quarter, we suffered from many orders being delayed or many orders cancellation. We had some customers that switch from their regular products to say personal, like sort of a gym, exercises, indoor exercises, as Nestor was saying, like devices to communicate from your own place, like tablets, mobile phones, all those kinds of accessories that will connect you to the world. I mean, you have to work from your home. If you cannot get yourself to your workplace, you can work from home. You can get those devices and start working from working from home and basically performing that task. So those products were the ones that were high in demand, and yeah, we did get a lot of customers switching from their regular products onto those products that were in
right.
demand.
Do you still see high demand for those kinds of products, like work from home products? Is it still
Yes,
there, or has it
it
stabilized?
it has dropped a bit. Obviously, there are high competitors in the market at the moment. I mean, eBay, I don't know if I can mention eBay or all those sort of platforms, but they're flooded with those products at the moment, and the margin, the
Yeah,
profit, it's not as good as it used to be. But there are people creative there, and they're making changes to those products, obviously making it more attractive and giving it with gifts or something. I mean, trying to build up an image of those specific articles and trying to sell them. But yeah, I mean, it has dropped a bit. But yes, I mean that's how our customers, some of our customers, survived through the year just by switching different products.
right. Okay, we have a couple of questions. So David is asking, what do you think about the price of the container? And Alan, this is for you. And then we have another similar question from Shakir. Higher container price is a big issue. How long will it be stable? So yeah, AJ, I mean, do you have any advice on what the few next few months will look like in terms of container prices, and do you see any relief for importers at all, or is the situation going to get worse?
Well, we're getting business intelligence or business analysis from our agency offices in China. So don't shoot the messenger, guys. It's not that traditional. Oh, things will get better by Chinese New Year. Right now they're forecasting stability to start trickling around July at this point. So there's going to be a lot of catching up to do after Chinese New Year in terms of pricing. It's going to remain at that high level right now. As forwarders, we can't even keep 30-day quotes anymore. 15 days is just about as long. Sometimes it even fluctuates within those 2 weeks depending on liner availability. So again, it's really a time, and I always go back to Nestor. The risk mitigation. Your quality should be spot on, because as American consumers, one of the things that I see on the business side is there's a lot of retrieval orders now coming out of Amazon for us, and that's a secondary business for us. I'm seeing secondary sellers because of the margin, the volumes of returns coming from Amazon, from Walmart. That these things directly translate into the quality of your products that the sellers are are having to produce in China. So better get it correct the first time, or if not, we'll be here to move the freight. We'll retrieve it from Amazon. We'll consolidate it for you. But again, that shouldn't happen because it hurts your bottom line as Amazon sellers. Just another thing to watch out for.
Right. So, but overall, in terms of the issues with container prices and logistics, you don't see any respite in the next few months. And do you think the situation might, get worse before it starts getting better?
Again, I can only quote towards early July.
Okay.
I will circulate and send you what we receive on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. If there's some sort of good news, and I'm a cheerful guy. I don't really want to bring bad news. It's not my nature. But so far, it's I've all that I've given so far across the board, from these different forums is that we gotta tighten our belts and either save elsewhere or make sure that your products are spot on, because pricing transportation isn't gonna come down anytime soon.
AJ,
Right.
do you have any information about China building or constructing new containers to cover the demand?
I can look it up. I can ask with my agencies if new containers are being built just about as fast, and I can email that over to you. That's really no problem.
Right. Okay. Because that's one of the things I heard. I mean, I don't know whether it's a rumor or not. That obviously there's a demand out there for containers, and they're not coming back as fast as they're being sent. So they're
Yeah,
starting building more containers, obviously, to cover the demand.
I could ask. I could definitely ask. And again, it's that turnaround time that's killing us, which is why some on the West Coast, some carriers are not accepting return cargo. They'd rather get their empties.
Yeah. So David is saying, I guess so. I guess that's to your answer earlier, AJ. Okay, so let's start wrapping up over here. So, guys watching, if you have any last questions for our panel here, please type them in the comments now. So, I'm just going to go around to each of you and ask you to share your final thoughts on the next few months. Maybe AJ, you already talked about that, but anything that you want to say in your closing remarks. So, AJ, do you want to go first?
Thank goodness we have a new president. Right, Nestor? I mean, there's controlled optimism right now. Is how we're looking at it.
Okay, that's good to know. John, what about you? I mean, any parting advice for importers or any crystal ball forecast that you want to make?
Well, it's COVID time, isn't it? So it's really difficult to predict what's going to happen. The way we see it is expect the unexpected and plan in advance. That's my best advice.
Okay, plan in advance, yeah, and be prepared for what's coming.
Be prepared, yes.
Yeah, awesome. Nestor, what about you?
Yeah, we're all in the same boat. Everyone's in the same position, or we all want to be on the same boat in the case of the vessels, right? But to reach out to different suppliers, to different forwarders, and have patience and try to make sales and gain market based on different sales than on different things than just cost and time. Maybe different features to products can be something interesting at this point.
Right. So basically, try to mitigate your risks by diversifying your suppliers, forwarders, maybe even your sourcing locations. Okay, so let's start wrapping up over here. And Kelly says, no questions. Thanks so much, Megla, John, Nestor, and AJ. Awesome. So I'm going to also share your contact information over here, and I'm going to give you one last opportunity to, quickly talk about your services too. So AJ, you are from RTW Logistics. Do you want to just quickly, 30 seconds, talk about your company?
Well, again, full service. From supplier to shelf, we do that. We have our own customs brokerage. So stop by, say hi. Thank you for this opportunity to share what we know, and any new nuggets I'll directly send through you guys as well.
Awesome. Okay, so John, you're up next.
Yes, 12 years experience in China. We offer a range of services, sourcing, quality control, product development, factory auditing, logistics as well, and many more. So we're here to help you if you require any of our services.
Fantastic. Nestor.
Yeah, we specialize in sourcing all types of IT products. We manufacture tablets, education tablets, kids tablets. We also source all other types of IT products from other factories, such as monitors and different things like that. So anything that has to do with the IT related field, we're the ones to contact.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. It was really lovely catching up with you. And thanks a lot for sharing your advice and insights with all of us. And all of you watching, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you next week with another Supplier Stories live webinar. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.